everyone. Welcome back to My Unprofessional Opinion Podcast. I'm your host, Angela. So for today's episode, we're going to be talking about the difference between forgiveness and trust. Because I really feel like this is something a lot of people get confused about. You know what I mean? Because from the time when you were a young child, you're told to forgive people. And that's not a bad thing. Obviously, I'm not saying don't do it. But it was just engraved in all of us pretty much just you need to forgive, you need to forgive, you need to forgive. But then I think that a lot of times we can lose the fact that forgiveness and trust are two different things. So the definition of forgiveness is psychologists generally define forgiveness as conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance toward a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean condoning or excusing offenses. And then on the other hand, the definition of trust is trusting someone means that you think they are reliable. You have confidence in them and you feel safe with them physically and emotionally. Trust is something that two people in a relationship can build together when they decide to trust each other. So I think that having those two in mind, you can see the differences because look at it this way. It's a lot easier for most of us to forgive people if they make a rude comment, call us a name, compared to something bigger like they steal or they do something physically to harm you. It's a lot easier for us to forgive those small things, those minor things, because we're okay, it's not as bad on the grand scheme of things. But at the end of the day, in both situations, you need to forgive the person. And that's obviously a lot easier said than done, especially if you're somebody who is a little stubborn. And it can take time. It's not just a one done thing, A lot of times you have to really choose to, okay, I'm going to let go of it. I'm going to forgive them in my heart just for my own sake, because the longer that you're holding on to whatever the situation is, you're creating bitterness and resentment towards them in your heart against the situation, whatever happened. It's gonna be a lot hard to let that go because you're making it a bigger issue in your head and your own heart. But like I said, it's a lot easier said than done. It takes that intentional effort to say, okay, I'm gonna forgive this person, whether I think they deserve it or not. And it's something that you have to continually do because it's not just a one and done thing. Every time something comes up, every time you're annoyed or bothered or hurt, you're gonna have to forgive them in your own heart. And you really need to put the effort in so you can move past it, you can move on with your life, and you're not just holding on to this grudge, you're not just holding on to something that's really just weighing you down, making you upset, even making it a trigger point that if something else comes up, it's just kind of adding on top so it makes it a lot worse and you can blow your cool a lot easier because you're already kind of annoyed. And Ephesians 4 verse 32 says, be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. And I think that's a good thing to read because at the end of the day, if God can forgive you and he's perfect, you're not, I'm not, if he can forgive you, you should be able to forgive everyone else because you guys are all on the same playing field. And you might be saying there oh, I don't steal from people, I don't do this, I don't do that, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, we're all broken people. We all have sin in our lives. So like I said, it's a lot easier said than done, but you need to learn how to forgive those people. You need to learn how to let that go, move on and move on with your life so that you're not just holding up this grudge, you're not holding on to bitterness, and you're not going to be making the situation worse than it already is in your own mind. But on the other hand, trust, it's something that takes time and it has to grow because most people aren't just going to go up, meet a stranger on the street and tell them their whole life story, tell them everything in their past, tell them everything that they've struggled with because that'd be a little much for a lot of people because it takes time to build that relationship, build that connection, and develop the trust that a lot of people want just to feel safe, that they're not just going to tell something to this person and then they're going to go and blab it everywhere else. Because it can be a lot easier to have those deeper conversations or bigger conversations with your friends or your family, just the people who you're close to, the people who you really care about, who you value their opinion and their thoughts. It can be a lot easier to open up to them on one hand because you've built that connection, you have that trust that they're gonna have your back, they're gonna be looking out for your best interest than just some random stranger. So when you're in a situation and something happens, maybe someone does something to you, says something to you, whatever it is, forgive them. Yes, I'm not saying don't. But on the other hand, the trust, it might not come back right away. And if and when it does come back, it might not be as strong as it was before. Because like I said, it takes time. And once it's broken, you need to rebuild it. It doesn't just come back automatically. And I think that's something that a lot of us need to really grasp, that, you want to try to rebuild this trust. I'm not saying, don't, and like give up. But what I am saying is the trust, it might not come back as quickly as you would hope. It might not come back as strong as it was before, because it's going to take time. It's going to have to take you and the other person really intentionally trying to grow and build it back up. So just to wrap this all up, if you get one thing from what I've said today, I think like the main part I'm saying is forgive people. Yes, for your own sake. So you're not holding a grudge. You're not building resentment against this person or the situation or whatever happened. And that can be easy. Most of the times it's not, though. Most of the time it takes work. It takes that like big effort really to say, okay, I'm gonna forgive this person. They did me wrong, but I'm gonna look past it. But then the next step of that is try to rebuild that trust. Yeah, like I'm not saying don't do that, but if it doesn't come back how it was before, if it doesn't come as quickly, that's not a bad thing. Just learn how to deal with it, how to get through the situation, because it's gonna be different, and that's okay. And that's a lot easier said than done, but if you make the intentional effort to do it, I think it can be really beneficial in the long run. Anyways, that's it of this episode of My Unprofessional Opinion Podcast. I've been your host, Angela. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for new episodes every Wednesday. I'll see you guys next time. Bye, folks.